Welcome to the Get Offset podcast. My name is Emily.
And my name is Andrew.
Coming at you from Seattle, Washington-ish area.
Where it finally feels like Seattle again.
I know, it's been so sunny and warm and dry, and now it's like a little rainy.
It's a little bit of rainy, it's a little bit of foggy. The forecast for the next week doesn't get above like 74 degrees. This is why we pay the rent we do.
This is why we live here.
Right.
Yes. I mean, I'm excited for like the running thing, because when it was like getting hot, I'm like, oh, I have to wake up early to run.
Right.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I got up a couple times at like 6 a.m. to go play tennis with my wife, and that was fun. But like by the time it was like about 7:15, 7:30, time to get back, shower up real quick, and get to the desk for ye old day job. And it was I'm already sweating buckets. It was not okay.
No.
And
no, not okay.
And I'm sure everyone else is laughing at us like, oh, what? How hot could it have possibly been? I'm like, look, dude, when it's a high of 85, I melt. All right.
Yeah. And also, like, people need to keep in mind we don't have AC. So when it does get into like 80, it just makes inside house uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
obviously, we have nothing on like New Yorkers and Chicagoans who have like their window units, and that's it. And if the window unit breaks, then woof.
I mean, here's my thing with the heat is versus cold is, see, I prefer the cold, and here's why. You can always put on another jacket when it's cold, but when it's hot, there's only so many layers you can take off before it's illegal.
That's literally what I say.
Well, there you have it.
We are in agreement. How about it? Podcast over.
There we go. Momentous occasion. Now I've got a little portable AC unit on the other side of the office, and that poor little sucker, if I turn it on at like 7 a.m. and I get it like my room down to like 65. Now that sounds really luxurious, but the problem is it can't keep up. So by 2-3 p.m. in the afternoon, it's 77 degrees in here with that thing running full blast. It just doesn't keep up because like I've got it like a single story house with a black tar roof, and you walk outside and look at the roof and you just see like the heat, like the sizzle where the light refracts funny, like coming off the top of the house.
Yeah.
And it's an oven in here. If I don't use
put aluminum foil on the windows.
I'm pretty sure my landlord has something against that in the lease.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen that specifically in a lease.
I've seen it a couple of times, but it's definitely in my lease. I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not even, the windows isn't the issue because we've only got like one room with big windows. Like I'm in a room with a couple of windows that are shaded up the entire day with no skylights. It's just the heat coming from the ceiling is just brutal. So when if it gets above 80 outside, if I don't run the AC, it gets to 90, 95 in my room, which is awful for my guitars. Just why I'm happy to have an AC unit that at least keeps it under 80. But
yeah, oof, no good.
But
we don't have to worry about that this week because it's lovely. And it all started Thursday, which was the day I was a little worried. Like the day my band was supposed to play on a roof, like we wake up in the morning and it's like legit raining.
Dude, you played a live show. What was that like?
I know. It was awesome. So it did end up clearing up, and it was a beautiful evening for our live show. So we did a show, Sunday Crush, where we were on a roof at the Inscape Arts Building for the Grounded video series that they're doing, that the people who run Big Building Bash are doing. And load-in was pretty easy. They seemed really professional. Setup went well and smoothly. And we'd gotten a couple rehearsals in. But it's obvious we weren't as well rehearsed as we were when COVID hit, which we were like extremely tight. We hit most things. I, at one point, lost a bit of a guitar solo at the end and had a little bit of trouble finding it, though I did. And so I was kind of annoyed at myself for that. But everyone made like little itty bitty mistakes. The team was great. Everybody wore masks, except the performers while performing. Then we put our masks back on, did a little interview. It got a good response. Like we actually got tipped more than like via Venmo. People had just sent us a little money here and there. We got paid more than we did when we played when we opened for a well-known band at Numos.
Nice.
I mean, the bar was kind of on the ground there because they didn't pay us very well at all. But yeah, that felt really really good, and it just felt so great to play those songs again and be around my band again. Like we have a lot of fun.
Social interaction.
I know, it's so good. And then the other band was really great too. So I'll put a link in the show notes if I can remember, but I'll definitely put it in the visual thread. So if you're listening to this, we have a Facebook group called Get Offset Podcast. You can join it. Every week I post just like links and pics of the things that we talk about in the episode. So you can like it's a more fun way to do show notes, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a highlight of my Tuesday morning. Is going
Oh.
through and since you do the show notes, I get to contribute nothing and just get a good laugh. It's awesome.
That means I also get to say whatever the hell I want.
Well, then that's when I interject.
True.
Usually every other week I have to jump in and be like, well, actually, no, here's photos of this or yeah. But
I like how anybody does a listening thread. Sometimes our listener and patron Noah does a listening thread, which is always fun.
those are always Noah's got like this bombastic sense of humor that just leaves me rolling on the ground. Sometimes
Oh yeah.
literally. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so that was so exciting, so fun. We also officially did have started up pre-orders for the new album. So I think we sold like 10 copies of that during the live stream, which was amazing. If you're curious, you can go to Sunday Crush. It's Sunday like the ice cream treat.com or donutsounds.com. That's our record label, and that's where we're doing the pre-release for. And I forget exactly what organization we're giving to, but Jenna and Isaac and the band vetted it. So $10, that's half the sales from our first 100 vinyl sales is going to a really great cause dedicated to Black healing.
It's $500. That's not a small potato.
That's $1,000.
I swear I have a college degree. I somehow passed.
I know what you thought. You thought I was saying half of $10.
Yep.
No, the vinyl's $20. So we're basically going to lose money on the first like 100, but more like we're donating all of our proceeds from that, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So with the help from JR from Donut Sounds, like he's actually the one making it possible for us to, one, release our music, and two, give to such a good organization.
Yeah. That's super rad. I saw that in the
Yeah.
live stream. I'm like, ooh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty vinyl. And then also fun to be label mates with Friendly Robot, because that's Mike Adams' band.
Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's really fun. And then the lead singer in the band, Bundy, he works at Couch Straps. So
Oh, I
it's this
didn't
fun
know
little
that.
like industry family, yeah.
And did you say Friendly Robot?
I think that's the name of the band,
It's
Friendly
Fellow
Robot.
Robot. Fellow.
You know what? I think I always call it Friendly Robot, and I'm always wrong. Fellow Robot. What am I thinking of?
I don't know, but I heard you say that, and I'm just imagining Mike listening to this with a smile on his face because he's always like the most smiley, happy human I've ever met in my life, and just like his eyebrows furrowing and his head tilting just a little bit to the right, just like a 20-degree angle to the right. Like, wait, what? And oh no, that's nothing. And just keep listening. And now that I've called it out, he's like he's giggling right now. He's smiling.
Am I just like thinking about the movie Wall-E? Like, what am I doing?
I don't know, but
No, that's enough about me. Tell us how you got out here into Ybor City. What's new with you?
what's new with me? Well, so I had a fun experience this week. I got to experience what it's like to be a modular synth.
Ooh, you wear the synth now.
I became a synthesizer of sorts. I got to spend the night in the hospital. It was planned, so no need to freak out, but I did spend the night in the hospital for an overnight sleep study. And I counted up after the nurse got done putting all of the patch cables on my head and legs and everywhere else. I counted them up, and I had precisely 31 patch leads plus a breathing tube around my nose. And if I had to get up to use the bathroom, like they unplugged the module, like the patch bay essentially, and then hung it around my neck. And so I've just like covered in like just a rainbow of patch cables coming out
Wow.
from every, like under my shirt, over my shirt, down my shorts, like just everywhere. Is so, it was very strange. And knowing that that was all sending uh, information to a computer that got logged and is being reviewed by a doctor, super strange.
Yeah, that's
And
really weird.
definitely like I had a hard time falling asleep, which is partly why I was there. But part of me is like, I wonder, like those late night thoughts. It's like, I wonder if there's a way to like circuit bend the data that's they're collecting and like have like a long synth drone of my night of sleep.
I'm sure that would not surprise me if there's a way to do that.
Like,
I think
how
you
do
just
I,
created a new genre of music.
right? Like, there you go. That's my work day. My entire work day, if I need to get something done, I'm just listening to it, an extended synth drone of what my sleep is like, and where it just becomes kind of wild around like hour 6 or 7, where I hit full REM. You know what I'm saying? Not the band REM,
Yes.
but
Yes.
random. Was it random eye movement or rapid eye movement? Something like that.
Rapid. Rapid eye movement.
So that was fun. And by fun,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't sleep
It
well, but
happened.
I did it.
I think that was kind of the point, wasn't it?
It was. I've honestly, it was the best night of sleep I had the entire week. So I'm hanging in there right now.
Damn, dude. I don't think you should be driving.
Well, that's a different conversation that I should probably have with my grandpa. But
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna ask. It's fine. Cool. Do you have any new gear stories?
I don't have any gear stories for personal gear. Just been putting a lot of work into Fox Cairo this week. Really looking at what my options are. Shout out to Cameron from Gibbs Sunday. He and I had a really great conversation yesterday talking about some options, and he was offering me some friendly advice. So really appreciate it. Go give Gibbs Sunday and Tone Throne a follow.
Was it friendlier advice than me saying I told you not to use Squarespace?
It was a different realm of business advice, but yes, he was also friendlier about it than I told you so. Not I
I
deserved it.
gave
I'm
to,
not lying. I deserved that, but
for the record for the listeners, Andrew was building when he was first building the website for Fox Cairo. I was like, I think you should probably just use WordPress. Like, it's more flexible. It has all these plugins, yada yada yada. You can get hosting real cheap. It's really not that much custom work. And Andrew just understood Squarespace more. Like, it worked more for him, like visually, I guess. And I said, I think you're going to find it restrictive. And sure enough, you
well,
were paying more. You were paying more most monthly hosting for that than we're paying for the Get Offset site.
that's true. There's a couple of the reasons that went into that in terms of plugin compatibility for a model that I built out that I ended up abandoning for how I was going to run the back end of the business.
Right.
And then since I've abandoned it, I've been reworking other parts of that model, and now I'm realizing I can't do what I want to do with it. So the other part of it is that website was quite the saga to get together. I got to the point where like I could probably build this myself, but it's going to take me a lot of time. I have people that I know who are web devs. Let me reach out to them and we can work something out. And I was like, I'll pay you. Let's do this. And 2 web devs in a row like said, sure, let's do it. And I made them like get like their guest logins for the website to be able to edit stuff and all of that. And like after 2 weeks, just radio silence from 2
Yeah,
different web
because it's Squarespace.
um, but just complete radio silence from both. Like they just straight up like they didn't want. I was like, hey, like I haven't sent you the check. Do you still want the money? Or so I
Yeah.
got burned twice in a row. It was really awkward. And then finally, just I needed to do it myself, and I just went for it.
Yeah.
So I'm in a better place now. I've learned a lot, and I've learned enough to know that this is now restrictive, and I need to migrate the website.
I mean, I will happily help you. I helped Layla from Tunatone with her website. It's really just a WordPress theme. So it's like that's just kind of what I mean, I've done that I don't do that professionally really as much. Like I help with a couple client websites here and there, and they're both on WordPress, thank God. But when I was at Artist Home and doing like their kind of like jack of all trades person for their marketing and digital, I managed a couple different websites. One was on Squarespace, and Squarespace wasn't the worst one that I used. Wix was. I hated Wix so much. Like Wix had this weird thing where if we could ultimately only one human could edit it, because if you accidentally left yourself logged in and then like say someone else logged in later and they made a bunch of changes, as soon as you made a single change on top of those, it would revert all of their changes. So that happened 5 or 6 times before we figured out what was going on. It just wasn't made for multiple people or multiple computers even editing it.
Good gravy.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll help you with that. I mean, I promise you it's easy.
Yeah,
It
I
won't
mean,
take long.
I would definitely appreciate it. I despite how, novice I was, I'm actually still really proud of how the website turned out in Squarespace with that build. I really like the
Yeah.
look, I like the aesthetic, I like the layout. So I'd definitely like to retain as much of that as possible, then build from there. And other thing in gear news. This is slightly gear news, slightly political, but it is what it is. USPS has been behind on a lot of shipments. I got burned on this because I still have a Fox Cairo customer who did not receive theirs, and I'm sending out another one another two this afternoon. First one never showed up, seems to be lost, and so if it does show up at some point, that's fine. It's theirs. I'm sending two in two different packages and dropping them from two different locations. Just hopefully one of them gets there. I'm very intent on this customer getting it. I care a lot about doing right by my customers. But for everybody else, the reason why I'm bringing that up is not so you could take advantage of me as the owner of Fox Cairo and trying to get multiple pedal toppers. The point is, USPS is behind. It's not entirely their fault. There's some political shenanigans behind that. Please, this is my personal plea, don't stop shipping through USPS. We still need them around and do everything we can to support them.
Amen.
So I will,
Amen
despite one package
USPS.
lost out of like the 30 I've sent in the last month, still going to go for it, still sending them.
It's honestly not USPS's fault, except for the Postmaster General.
Right. And
So,
like I said,
like,
political shenanigans behind it.
we need USPS. It's, I think, integral to our functioning as a society and as a democracy. And the reason that they're like quote failing is because they have some weird kind of like rules or regulations that just don't make sense. Like, I think they have to have like all of their employees like pensions saved up somewhere instead of like working how most businesses work, where you don't always have everything in a savings account somewhere. It's like, that's my understanding, and there's some other weird stuff, but yes, shipping things is taking a little bit longer. More people than ever are relying on deliveries for everything. Like, people aren't just using like Instacart shoppers to go to the grocery store. They're buying food on like Amazon or through these meal kit providers. People are buying all of their stuff online. Amazon ships a variety of ways, and one of them is USPS. So yeah, let's just practice a little bit of kindness and understanding that this is a very weird time. I know that people are buying our shirts, and it seems to be like that seems to be moving faster than it had been. But I've been getting some pedals in, and I've had a couple instances where like it was supposed to be delivered today, and then it just didn't happen because USPS has like banned overtime.
Right.
So then the delivery drivers are just getting farther and farther behind.
Right. So all of that to say, please seriously consider supporting USPS from a consumer standpoint. If if someone sent a pedal and it just still hasn't showed up, please don't chew out the small business you ordered from. Please.
It is not their fault.
Yeah, it's not
and
their
like
fault.
for the record,
Extend
like if you
all
have,
the grace you can.
Yeah, if you have a tracking number, please do the thing where you call the USPS.
Yes.
Because it's like I remember shipping things like through Reverb like around Christmas, and I had two people be like, "It just says it's in transit." And I'm like, I can call, yeah, but I'm going to get literally the same information you're going to get, which is we're just really behind right now. If it says it's in transit, that means it is not lost. Like, I got the Hosta Wall from Flower Petals. That was sitting around in UPS for like 4 days. And it's fine. It's fine. I didn't need it, but it's just like, that's just an example.
Right. I mean, from a business owner perspective, like shipping is one of those things like I don't want to spend any more time than I need to on it because, I mean, why? The way I've got my shipping built out is when an order gets, when I get an order, a label gets automatically created and printed, and then I've got it all tied together in the way that my system comes through, to where once I make the topper, I grab the envelope. The most amount of time I spend in my shipping process is I always write a handwritten thank you note on the back of the application instruction sheet.
Aw.
Every single order that has gone out to date has had one of those. I haven't skipped out as far as I'm aware. And if you ordered one for me and you didn't get a thank you note, yell at me and I'll send you another one. I believe in that. That's my version of Sweetwater's candy. So that's the most time I spend on it, though. That takes me a couple minutes to write out. And then from there, it's peel and stick. I lick the envelope shut, metaphorically, because of course I'm not actually licking them in the realm of COVID. And then I drop off the bunch of them like a couple times a week when I've got a batch.
Nice.
So the reason why I'm sharing that information is not to bore you to death with what my business looks like from a week to week perspective. That's about as much time as I can spare on that process until I have to start neglecting other parts of the business that are more customer facing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to sit on hold with USPS for 48 minutes for each one of them. Like, I love you guys, but if I can't do that for everybody, realistically, I just don't have the bandwidth. And I know a lot of other business owners feel the same strain as they can't
Also
just sit someone in front of the
yeah.
phone for 8 hours a day.
Also to get literally the same answer. I mean, if something is like truly like a week and a half late, then yeah, it's probably time to file a claim, but that's about that.
Well,
yeah, but this is to say, like, I got some new pedals in. Can I tell you about one I'm very excited about? Can I? The Empress Zoya is one I got in the mail a few weeks ago. Yeah, I got a Zoya, and I'm having a lot of fun, like, learning this kind of language.
It's an alien language. It's our modern day pyramids of how is that made? Aliens must have done it for us.
It reminds me a lot of the Polydigit, which I had done some demos of. So it's basically like you're creating your own signal chains, and you can do like stereo, mono things, lots of different effects in there. Like the Digit did have a lot of effects. And for the record, like the Polydigit looks like it's undergone some seriously cool software upgrades. So I'm trying to work with Loki to get his modulation version of that, the Bebo, so I can play with that. But I know that Loki was on the Tone Mob podcast, and after that, like, I saw like a ton of people talking about the Digit, so that's always cool to see. But the Digit has just like, it's just a big screen, and then the Zoya has these little buttons, so it looks kind of like one of those little Ableton Pad type things. But
yeah, like
I've really I've barely scratched the surface of what it can do. But once you get past like the understanding the language and kind of how things work and what button does what, it starts to feel really intuitive, which is really neat. Is that it doesn't stay complicated, but it can get more complicated. So I'm just trying to run through some tutorials on that so I can do like a nice, thorough kind of demo, because it's sort of, I think it deserves that, and like how to do specific things. So like I love doing like different reverb in each ear. That's something that I really like doing, that I played with on the Digit some. So that's one of the two pedals I'm really excited about this week. But this week was recovery week at Get Offset Podcast and the YouTube channel mostly. Woo!
It was recovery week, and in the fullest sense of the word, because listening to all those sound clips brought me so much life. It was awesome.
Little soul recovery.
Yeah, but I don't mean that like in a haha, I'm an infomercial. I've got one-liners. It's more of like a genuine, honestly, they've got some really unique sounds They're not just pumping out your Tube Screamer variants one after
No.
the other. Like that is full out innovation and some really dreamy sounds. And my ears were tantalized.
Did you have a favorite?
I don't know. Don't make me choose. Maybe the white gold.
I don't. Yeah, I think the white gold was my favorite. I think that was just so fun to play with, and I should say that was my favorite of the pedals that had already been in production. But they just released their Gallows in the Morning. If you go to recoveryeffects.com, I think that you can still pre-order that for like $200, which is a stellar price. But it's a dual. It's just like an overdrive or a distortion. There's a toggle to kind of choose between like the level of gain on one side, and then it's a reverb that just has like a reverb knob and a clean blend. And I think that I'm gonna like that surprises me. I think I'm gonna put it on my baseboard because if you just have the reverb up all the way, and then you have nothing on the clean, it can make your bass sound like a cello. I know that's like I know that's every reverb pedal that has a kill dry, but it's still really fun. And the way it's built, the reverb stays really pristine. Like everything stays really pristine. Like there's no muddiness added. I don't know, like I don't know if they're running in series or parallel, the reverb and the distortion, but it sounds like they might be running in parallel. I'm probably wrong about that. We're gonna have them on the show to talk about it, but
Oh, absolutely. I've got so many questions.
I have
Uh,
questions.
I,
Like
I,
how could you say something so brave? So
uh,
controversial yet so brave.
the number one question I have is how there has to be the most beautiful souls on the planet behind these sounds.
They are. Zara especially. Like I don't know Greg as well personally, but like I've had talks with her and she is just like a wonderful, wonderful person. And like I think it takes a really special person to care for animals the way that she does, and that's gonna sound like kind of like a weird hippy dippy thing to say. But
Yeah, man, just like the way that, like, cats and dogs, like, yeah, man.
yeah, but
I haven't broken that voice out in a while.
I know. Wow. I just remember having a really, really lovely several hours with them last summer, getting some drinks at Chuck's, and then just hanging out in their studio and looking at their catio, and that was a lot of fun.
Can I change subjects real quick?
Yes.
Literally in this moment, I have just received tracking from USPS from something that I ordered earlier this week, and I'm excited.
Ooh, is it musical related?
It is. I ordered something from Big Ear.
Ooh, what'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get?
I got the hot sauce.
Oh, yes.
I'm
Oh,
so
that's
excited.
good. That's the good stuff, man.
I'm so excited. I was so bummed. I think last time they had this, they sold out before I'd even heard that it was a thing. So they just had a limited quantity. And by the time, the grapevine reached out to me, I was like, oh no, they're out. So this time around when I saw it, Facebook must have known because Facebook is sentient. And I saw Karen's announcement, hey, we just got some of these in stock. I clicked through, clicked again, and it was ordered. Just like that. 4 clicks, boom, done. I didn't even think about it. I just made it happen.
Good. You don't think about hot sauce.
I'm so excited for it to get here. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that was my brief aside. Do we want to talk
Sponsors?
Sponsors.
This week's episode of the Get Off Set podcast is brought to you by another Seattle-based pedal company, Spun Loud Effects, who have released fairly recently their Blister and Peel V2. It's a dual drive / fuzz pedal, and it's dope. It's orange. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I can't get over how beautiful that enclosure is.
I'm a fan. I'm gonna spare you guys all from my prophetic.
Just stop with the orange, please, for the love of God and all that is
Dang
holy.
it. Okay, well, I'm not saying. I was just gonna say I was gonna stop with it. If you haven't already adhered to it, it's too late for us. So
it's too late. It's
like
too late.
global warming. I mean, at this point, it's too late.
It's 11:59.
Yeah. And not enough orange petals out there in the world.
Oh my god! Like there aren't a billion DS ones and twos.
Certainly not a billion. Let's not be hyperbolic.
There's at least a million.
And now I feel like I'm being pandered to. Come on.
Let me see. I'm curious. How many DS?
I'm going to guess
ones
1.4
have
million
sold?
have been produced.
I'm sorry. How many did you say?
I said 1.4 million.
Well,
Is
they're
that
not.
absurd?
They're not. They're not. Tracking their sales.
Maybe not sold. Let's look at produced.
Oh no! They say that more than 10 million Boss pedals have been sold.
So how many of those have been the DS1?
I would bet a lot. I would not be surprised if 1/10 of their
And how many of
sales were
them
DS1s
are
and twos.
on sale as supposedly Kurt Cobain's, which we all know is not true?
At least 1,000.
Cool.
Well,
Well, anyways, Spun Loud. If you want an orange pedal that does more than one thing, unlike the DS1, go check it out. It would make me happy. It would make Emily happy, and more importantly, it'll make you happy because your tone will be happy. All of that to say, be happy. By Spun Loud.
yes, joy is important.
We need more joy in this world, especially this year.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what's not bringing me any joy.
I'm going to guess it's corporate nonsense.
Corporate nonsense is not joy. So this week, I think we want to talk about what the Spotify CEO, Daniel Ek, has said. And this was a couple weeks ago even, but I can't stop thinking about how boneheaded it was. He says that artists need to work harder, basically.
Well,
what did he say?
Surely
he said,
that's got to be a paraphrase. What? Help me out here. So, I've read the article.
Can I read the quote?
Yeah.
Even today on our marketplace, there's literally millions and millions of artists. What tends to be reported are the people that are unhappy, but we very rarely see anyone who's talking about. In the entire existence of Spotify, I don't think I've ever seen a single artist saying, quote, I'm happy with all the money I'm getting from streaming, end quote. Stating that publicly. In private, they have done that many times, but in public, they have no incentive to do it. But that is to say that they're happy with the money they're getting. But unequivocally from the data, there are more and more artists that are able to live off of streaming income in itself. There is a narrative fallacy here, combined with the fact that obviously some artists used to do well in the past may not do well in this future landscape, where you can't record music once every 3 to 4 years and think that's going to be enough. Woof. The artists today that are making it realize it's about continuous engagement with their fans, about putting the work in, about the storytelling around the album, and about keeping a continuous dialogue with your fans. I feel really that the ones who aren't doing well in streaming are predominantly people who want to release the music the way it really used to be released. And I will say one thing to his credit about this. There are a couple reasons that artists aren't making a lot of money via streaming. It's not just the payouts. Some artists, with how their label deals and their publishing work, are only getting fractions even of that. So a lot of people have bad publishing deals that are preventing them from getting all of the revenue that they should be getting. That being said, wow, what a rude thing to say.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, where should we start? I mean, so I think...
Can we start with, I'm going to preface something here.
Sure.
And it's something that I haven't prefaced in a while. So you're going to smack me virtually for saying this. I think I'm going to agree with, I think realistically, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the subject. However, for the next few minutes, I am going to, against every instinct I have in me, do my best to play devil's advocate, knowing that I'm going to fall flat on my face because I don't think there's...
White man's favorite thing.
I know. For the sake of posterity, I've got to try and poke some holes in this to see how far I can get. I just don't think I'm going to get very far. So that's my preface. And let's see
Yeah.
how I can kind of rephrase and look
Yeah.
at this in a different light. I don't think, yeah.
Yeah. So, let's start with Napster because I feel like it has to start with Napster because
It
until
all comes
then,
back to Napster.
well, it does because before Napster, labels would actually kind of invest money in people, and they would try they would like sign a bunch of similar bands, throw them at the wall, and see what stuck. So like, not every band was like successful. Clearly, this is not how it happens, and a lot of bands still didn't make money. I mean, you were lucky. I think that Michael Jackson only made like $8 for every album he sold. So like, there was never a lot of money being made from album sales.
Yes, because Michael
But
Jackson's the one we should feel sorry for with their income from the
no,
industry.
I'm saying that this person with all this clout and all this ability to like really pull his weight and get better deals, that even he was only getting like a
Right.
buck for every
Yep.
album sold. That's what I'm saying. So that's part of it. When Napster hit, the music industry was really kind of on an upswing. It was really a big heyday. There were tons of labels, tons of music being released, lots of money being put behind uh, these bands who had like, you'd buy their album and they'd have like one good song, and that was a single. So you'd buy the whole album to get the single, because like, yeah, CD singles existed, but they kind of sucked. It's not like when there was vinyl, you could just buy the 45 and then you could just have the single and a B-side and pay a little bit less and be happy. So there was this kind of disconnect. I think people were really unhappy with this, realizing that they had to buy the whole album to get the single. The single was good, the rest of the album sucked. So there were some cases of that happening. Then Napster comes along, and people are able to share music without paying for it, and it just feels free because it's not a tangible good, right? It's like, you would never like it's not even like, so if you bought a painting and you made a copy of the painting, it's not going to be the same quality. So it's like, yeah, you can't duplicate it, but when you do music over like P2P, peer-to-peer sharing, it didn't lose any of the fidelity, really. So people were sharing music, and then also at the same time, and this is arguably kind of a bigger issue, is borrow to burn. So people would borrow. So one person would buy a CD, they'd share it with their friends, they'd all put it on their computer, they'd all have it on their iPhones. I mean, iPods at that time. And then in the music industry was like, how can we stop people from stealing music? Spotify comes along. Spotify really did effectively kill streaming of albums, like, and not theft of albums like that, like peer to peer, effectively killed it, because now you have this free platform if you want to pay, if you want to like deal with the ads, or this very affordable platform where you can listen to like every song ever, pretty much, with some exceptions, obviously. And you know it was that because how many times did someone who have Kazaa think they were downloading Fiona Apple and actually get Cage Choice just because they're both women who sing in a low register? Like, a lot. Me, personally. So it really did effectively kill P2P. So Spotify did that
Right.
well.
I mean, I haven't definitely was guilty of being like, "Hey, I'll take the album home from the bus and then bring it back in the morning after I've burned it and hand it off to the
Yeah.
next kid on the bus."
Yeah.
Definitely did that with the Taylor Swift album in college. Actually, I think that was 1989. Or
I
was
did
no,
a ton in
I
high
did that with
school.
Red. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the last time I did that because I was starting to get into Spotify. But one guy at the end of the hall was like, "Guys, I've got like a pirated copy of Red." Um, Pretty sure I still have that like loaded on my laptop that I haven't fired up in 3 years. But yeah, I mean, I haven't done it since then. It's definitely dropped off.
Yeah. That's also partially because who has a CD-ROM drive anymore? But
I do.
I do in one of my computers, and I'm probably going to need to just buy like an external one for other reasons. So now Spotify did that really well. We'll give them credit for that. But they always had the promise that artists would still make money. They would still be able to make income from this, that it wasn't free. And I don't think they've delivered on that promise. And they've created this kind of they created this problem that now they're complaining. It feels like this Daniel's complaining that artists are complaining about this problem that his brand effectively created. Because even though Spotify exists and people aren't stealing records, the music industry and album sales or album creation hasn't improved at all. So it used to be, back again in this heyday, when you have a record deal, the record company only takes money from the records sold. So then they make all their money on the album. You might get some money back after your royalties have been paid off, like after your advance has been paid off. And a lot of bands never made it to this point. Even bands that sold a million records, like A Tribe Called Quest, like never made a dime from album sales. But they got to keep all their touring, all of their merch, their publishing for the most part, their licensing. They probably had to share that with whoever was doing their publishing. But they were able to make money between album cycles, and everything that happened between the album cycles is how they made their money. So that was how it used to work. After Napster, basically record labels were like, we cannot sustain ourselves just on album sales anymore. So they started signing artists to what's called a 360 deal, which means in theory, the label would help them with merch, touring, licensing, publishing, etc. And then they would take a cut. In practice, they maybe weren't giving as much support to the artist as the artist would have liked. The artists have less control over their merch when somebody else is running it like that. So 360 deals are wildly unpopular with artists, but it was the only way really you could get a major label deal. Even some indies, honestly. So that's how the album, that's how the record label, that's how the record industry changed a little bit. Cue Spotify. Nothing.
Right.
So what's improved since Spotify?
Visibility,
less theft. I mean, somebody's getting paid for these streams. I self-published a Spotify title and all those, so I know what the raw numbers are that I get from my streams, and people are starting to publish those rates. Spotify pays toward the least amount, but you still get the most money from them because they're the most popular platform.
right? They get used the most.
Meanwhile, artist-owned and Black-owned Tidal pays significantly more, at least twice as much. But you don't get as much money from them because not as many people use Tidal.
Right.
So then if you have like a publishing contract, your publisher is taking part of that stream, part of that money, and then they're paying you out like a fraction of a penny per stream. So you would need about 1,200. So a 10-song download, an album sale, 10-song download. The album equivalent is about 1,200 premium audio streams or 3,700 ad-supported streams. And that's how you get that's what actually, that's not right. How much does it take? How many streams does it take to earn $1? Let's look at that.
And while you're looking at that, I'm thinking to myself, Spotify is this massive business, and where is this money coming?
Where's it going?
Like, where is it going? Because the reality is, not all of that money is going to the artist. And so my question is less of how much is each artist getting per stream, or realistically, how much are they able to get? My question is, how is that variant from where versus the total cash pool? So if we look at Spotify's net worth, which admittedly that's not a liquid number, so we have to keep that in mind, but it's worth $21 billion. The CEO of Spotify is worth $4 billion. And that's a lot of money. And again, not all of that's liquid, so it's not like they've got he's got $4 billion of cash. I'm sure a lot of that is in his stake in the company.
Yeah.
So
where's it going? Where does it go with any other business? Employees,
right?
Developers, advertising, marketing, payouts to their shareholders.
Exactly. So then this is where I start to look at it and go, okay, artists are getting paid less for their work now, but that's because the new model now with Spotify in the picture, there's more hands in the cookie jar. And so if I think of it from that perspective, does it seem less equitable, or does it just seem like this is just how the business has evolved and it's not necessarily Spotify being greedy?
Right. Well,
This is my
okay.
attempt at
So,
devil's advocate here, by the way.
I mean, yes. So I've said this kind of before about reverb, so I don't really want to like be a hypocrite. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Spotify does deserve a good amount of that money that they take, because they put a lot of money into developing a platform, into all these licenses to get the music and all the work that
Become an
entails.
industry leader, changed
Yeah.
art.
Marketing, getting people to use the platform, like that was its own thing because people were suspicious about it. So, like all of that investment, like yeah, they deserve to make money. I think
And
Daniel Ek deserves to be a very wealthy man, to be
right.
honest. He did create a platform. However, let's okay. There
Well, and just to tack on to that, I want to make a very bold claim here for a quick moment. And I would like to say that I think Spotify has made more of a difference in bringing the music industry into the digital age than Apple did in the 2000s.
Oh, well, I don't want to Apple, like, okay, iTunes literally only exists and is only like the standard despite it always being a piece of trash as a software. Like iTunes was just one of the first, if not the first. Like
Well,
I've always hated iTunes. I've always had a contentious relationship with iTunes. I hate it. But yeah, they did. They made it they made
you
it
can hate
user
it, but they
friendly.
did have a really big impact for the music industry in terms of changing the format in which music is consumed and making it more accessible to the masses for those who could afford iPods, and creating the platform of iTunes that exists on hardware that either Apple users or Windows users worldwide already had. So
Right.
they made a huge splash. I'm not trying to deny that Apple made a huge difference, but as big as what Apple did in the 2000s, now let's look at Spotify, and now it's on you could put this on any mobile device. It reaches more platforms. Now, instead of just having iTunes loaded on your computer and listening to it from there, you can access it from anywhere. And so the amount of traffic and the advertising, I think, right, for whether it's for the worst or for the best, I think it's changed the music industry much more and made it more digital than Apple did. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. Um, but let's look at the numbers for how many streams it takes to get $1. Um,
Dollar bills,
let's
y'all.
look at so YouTube, 1,000, about 1,500. YouTube doesn't pay very well, and YouTube only pays like okay. Let's not talk about YouTube anymore. Pandora 752, Amazon 249. So artists don't feel bad about kicking your music off of Amazon. They don't have any users and they pay like trash. Shocker. Spotify 229 streams to make $1. Now, think about the artists that you love and how you want to support them. Do you think you're going to listen to that song 229 times? Do you think that would you pay $1 to listen to it 229 times? Like, think about that. Just think about that. Think about how little you're actually supporting the artist that you love when you're like, come on, this is so
Well, okay,
ridiculous.
sure.
That's a ridiculous amount of money.
Well, no, okay, so I'll bite on that for a quick moment here. Do I think that I would listen to a single song 229 times? No, there's very few songs that would do that. However, in terms of storage space and not wanting to have to pay for cloud storage, or just having a larger, like paying another $100 for a phone with more storage space, or wanting to upload my iTunes folder to my work laptop so I can listen at work. No, and so the accessibility is what, from a user standpoint, that's where it's for me to want to consume music. There's so much more money I'd have to sink into it in order to own the physical hard drive space to host that on. And since that's not in the cards for me in the ways that I consume, now it's what are my cloud options?
Is that really it? Is that it? Is that the big reason you would not pay $1 to have a song is because it has like, I don't know, 1 kilobyte of data. I don't.
Well, because yes, honestly, and from the perspective of a lot of users, absolutely. If I can get the 16 gig iPhone and it hosts all of the apps that I need on it, versus if I'm going to get an iPhone, or like Android users will do this where they get their external, the external micro SD for like 64 gigabytes, and that's like $80 for the card, or at least it was at one point in time. Let's say even $50 to have that, and now you're inserting it, but now you have an Android, so haha, and it becomes a game of how much storage space do I have on handheld devices. That margin is a lot smaller. You have to pay a lot of money just to have the nicer device that can handle that much data, because it's not just the one song. No one's loading just one song on their phone. People are trying to load albums. People are trying to load a catalog of what their preferences are. And versus for very little extra space on my phone hard drive, I could download Spotify for $10 a month. I could have no ads, and it functions the exact same way, but I've got access to a much larger database.
I mean, from a consumer standpoint, it makes sense, but there are a
Right,
lot of
right.
really nasty things that make sense from a consumer standpoint. But music, it's not like buying an apple, like a literal apple that you consume and it's gone, and you don't really have to think about like everything that apple went through. Like, you don't have an emotional bond with the food that you eat. You probably don't have an emotional bond with like the makeup that you buy necessarily, or like a lot of other things, but you get an emotional bond to music. I mean, and this is someone's livelihood. So I feel like we're getting so far away from it and we have not a lot of time, but
Right. Well, we're getting there. We are getting there. So,
okay, but can I just say you need 229 streams on Spotify to give your artist that you love $1. You only need 80 streams on Tidal to do that. How many songs do you listen to 80 times, Andrew?
probably just About a Girl by Nirvana when I'm really sad.
Or like 80 streams of an artist to listen to an artist. Like, that's like listening to a 10-song album 10 times, eight times.
I mean, I'm sure I've done it before, but I mean, honestly, I've probably listened to Covet at least that many, given Covet a few hundred streams. But I mean, that's
Okay,
if
we're
I'm
different. We're different
that
consumers of music.
that's definitely not the norm though. For the different bands that I consume, that's not the normal amount of streams I'm putting into it. So sure, I'm not giving most of the artists I care about more than $1 with my streams.
So you don't buy albums because you don't listen to albums more than once?
Well, stop asking me directly, because I do buy albums. I just buy CDs. But
Well, I mean, but here's the thing, Andrew. Like, that's not okay. You're
I am
complaining
not the
about storage
norm.
space. You're complaining about
Right.
storage space, but like, digital's not the only way that you can buy music, and it's not the only way I buy music. I buy vinyl records from record stores like Sonic Boom and Ballard. I buy CDs at shows because it's the easiest way to listen to music in my car still. I buy tapes when that's what is available from the artist, because I do have a way to like listen to them. Like, we can't just talk about it like this. Like, but so let's get back to what Daniel said.
Right.
He said that artists.
Reread the quote.
I'm not going to reread the whole quote. You can't. Okay. Combined with the fact that obviously some artists that used to do well in the past may not do well in this future landscape that Spotify has created, where you can't record music once every 3 to 4 years and think it's going to be enough. So the reason that it used to be every there's a few reasons why music used to be recorded every 3 to 4 years. It takes a lot of time to create quality art, to write those songs, to get them recorded, to get them mixed and get them mastered. It takes time to physically print the materials, to go through the design process. It takes like 6 weeks to 8 weeks to 10 weeks to get vinyl pressed right now. People needed to tour. Obviously, that's not a thing right now and might not be until the end of next year. People needed to go on tour to support the music. So you go on tour to support the album, to sell more copies of the album, and also to sell tickets and kind of make a living off of that, to sell merch, and like kind of like you have to milk that creative thing that you birthed, you spent time birthing. It's got a long gestation period. Uh, I mean, it's just like, and then some people have always been prolific. Elvis Costello was always releasing albums every year or so. Prince was always releasing albums every year. Not everyone is that prolific. I mean, look at Fiona Apple. She goes 6-8 years between album cycles, and then she just unleashes this masterpiece on people. And it's worth the wait sometimes. Sometimes art is worth the wait. And you cannot tell artists to create more music more quickly than they can, because it's not like printing widgets. It's not, that's literally not what it is. It's not like taking mattresses off an assembly line. It's like telling people they need to like create a completely new product from scratch every single year. And
So
some that works for some artists and doesn't work for others. But to tell people that they need to do that or they can't expect to make a living in Spotify land is trash, because he just wants more content that he can promote to people and make them listen to it.
so here's huh, where do I begin trying to poke holes in this? All right, so I'm
And
blanking real.
basically, can I just say, he's telling artists you need to do the least lucrative part of your art very frequently, even if it screws up the most lucrative part of what you do.
Okay, so I'm not sure if that's what he's saying, and let
He
me.
is.
So here's what I'm seeing the perspective from. I think he's speaking. If I'm going to be charitable here, I think he's speaking to the perspective of just streaming income. And so looking at it from a boom or bust model, where if like when you release the album, you get a ton of streams, you are booming, you're making a ton of money, and then it's going to slowly taper off, and now you're at a bust level. And that, just with the ecosystem of streaming, that's what you're looking at. And so I think he's saying if you want to be able to live off of streaming year after year alone, this is what it takes to make you've got to perpetually have releases in order to perpetually have these spikes. So that's if I'm reading into what he's saying. He didn't make that very clear, and I am admitting that I'm being incredibly charitable by giving that analysis. So from that perspective, sure. As far as the rest of what artists are doing outside of that in terms of touring, merch, and album sales, I think that's a different
Licensing.
right. I think that's a
Yeah.
different world, and I don't think Mr. Eck honestly is in that world. That's not his ball game. They've played a little bit with streaming. So to that sense, he's had a little bit of skin in that game, but that's not really the world he's in. He's in the world of streaming. So keeping the conversation contextualized to that makes sense. Now, this is where I start to kick back a little bit and step out of my devil's advocate is I'd like to come back to the notion of boom or bust. And the idea of boom or bust is, I think the term goes back to like oil or whatever. The idea is like you strike gold, you make a ton of money, and then if you blow it all at once, you're really kind of screwed when it comes to when things dwindle down. Now the difference being is I don't think with Spotify's model right now it's a boom or bust. I think it's a get by and then bust model. No one's truly booming, or at least most people aren't booming when they release a record. They're not. The amount that it pays out doesn't allow someone to truly boom.
No.
And so looking at it from the perspective, it was like, okay, he's saying boom or bust. And you just want, he's seeing people that are complaining that people aren't able to boom on a regular basis. What I'm seeing as an artist, is from artist perspective is no, like we're only making just enough money to get by every time we release an album. And then it quickly tapers off and it's not enough after that point. We need a bigger piece of the pie. And so I'm looking at this as saying this very much feels like a corporate rebuttal to the proletariat saying, hey, we need a bigger piece of the pie if this is going to work for everybody. And I think he's phrased it really sneakily, and I'm at this point more or less stepping out of it. Even with just the contextualization of it being focused in the streaming world, I'm not sure that holds the weight it needs to, unless, and this is where I have to have a level of resignation, unless Spotify truly has that much control over the industry where they've permanently redefined what that looks like. And they're at this point arguing about that is a moot point, and it's now time to adapt and move on. Whether or not we're at that point, I think different people will agree on, but I mean, the same way that the film industry is slowly moving the same direction, where it's quantity over quality and trying to crank out material in smaller chunks with lower quality. Now you've got Quibi. Quibi is trash television, but it's that constant stream that media consumption corporates looking at, going, great, this works for us really well. We can forecast this a lot easier. We've I mean, from a corporate mindset, that sure, that makes a lot of sense. But from a consumer standpoint, you're suffering on quality, and from the artist standpoint, you're suffering in terms of you. That just completely changed the game, and no one likes the new game.
No, well, I can tell you who does like the new game, and I think I vaguely know who he's talking about. Because, like, if you do the math, you get 1 million streams. That's a lot of streams. That's like a lot of equivalent album sales. You get $3,000. That's it. So, who is making money and who probably is happy with this are these people call them like fake bands or fake artists. And it's like these artists who don't really exist. They have a bunch of different names, but it's all like the same couple people churning them out. And then they create these playlists like music to fall asleep to, and just like a bunch of kind of ambient, like quiet stuff. And that's not, I'm not saying anything about the quality of it. I haven't even listened to this kind of stuff, but people put it on when they fall asleep or they study. It's like background noise. And it's just because they're creating these playlists and they're advertising and promoting these playlists that are background noise.
Sure, they're
And
hustling the system. That's fine. I don't
yeah,
have a
so they're
problem with
doing
that.
that. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing, and they're doing a little bit to make just a scudge of money, and then like en masse and have like a lot of this and kind of trucking. It's like the same kind of idea as creating a website that's designed to get views and not designed to provide like excellent information, but it's maybe vaguely helpful. And then the way they make their money is through ad revenue and affiliate sales. And they don't exist to actually sell you anything. They exist to get those like commissions and that incremental passive revenue. So those are probably the people who are happy with it because it's passive revenue.
Sure. I mean, I don't honestly have a problem with that. That those are not the people that I'm looking at and finding myself upset with, because the game changed.
Oh, I'm
We're
not
now
upset
we're
with them.
playing the new game. So where my headspace starts to go with this, and again, I've left the world of devil's advocate at this point, is uh, looking at the bigger picture and going, okay, so the game is changing. To a degree, there's only so much to be done about this, because at this point you have to comply with Spotify to to from a marketing and an income perspective to a degree, to be a large successful artist. Taylor Swift was only able to keep her music off of Spotify for a couple of years before putting it back on. I mean,
Well, and to be fair, like she also pulls her weight around like artist rights a lot, like she did for Apple Music, when
right,
Apple Music was just like literally going to use people's art for free. Like,
right. So my thought here is, I I want to appreciate what Spotify has done. What I think what they've done is really great. I think in terms of the value they've provided for consumer accessibility and allowing people to get drawn into the wider world of music, and not just the same 8 albums that their dad had on the shelf as a kid or whatever's on the radio. I think I think there's a lot of really positive merit in that. My question isn't trying to like say Spotify is completely evil, because I'm not sure that's the case either. My question is, how do we continue to work the system where everybody wins? Because what I'm seeing is Spotify's looking at saying, we Spotify corporate needs to win, and in order for them to win, they have to make the customers win. It's not as contingent to make the artists win in order for their business
right.
model to succeed. And this is something that I've, on a micro scale, have really tried to wrap my head around with the business model for Fox Cairo, and the way that I've been building out the artist collaboration program, making sure that independent artists are getting paid for their custom work for the for the toppers that they've been designing, and making sure that they're getting. And I grant that that has been a really strange process for me to work and realize that it's really difficult to make everybody win in a situation. But
Yeah.
I don't. A company their size, I really think that they've got to, for everybody to win, we've got to find a way to say, hey, Mr. Eck, I get it. Everybody's got to win if this is going to work long term before you're going to start seeing some sort of another major shift.
Yeah. But
So
by
like,
and large, artists aren't winning. And when your entire business model is built on this art and the artists aren't winning, it's exploitative.
right, and a lot of capitalism is, and that's my fear, is that we're headed that direction. There's going to be no turning back. We are
We've already passed it, I think, personally. But like you see
sure.
people like Joey from La Neve, who we had on the show. He's part of a new like musicians union, and they're trying to like negotiate better payout rates for streaming. So that's something I'll also drop a link to. Because I think it's important. I think also, like, if you're not a musician, like, I think it's important to show support. I mean, listen, there are ways that Daniel Ek could say, like, oh, music, like this has been like musicians from the beginning of time. There's always someone who comes in, swoops in, takes your revenue streams, and then tells you how to make the money again, like how to make that money back. Like people are coming in, swooping in, and being like, we're taking all of your album sales, but you should get a Patreon. You know,
Right. I mean,
it's like
I
you
don't know.
can't screw artists and then blame them for not making their own money. And this is exactly what it's what it sounds like he's saying, is that he's blaming artists for not abiding by this problem that he created.
Right.
Maybe it does have a solution. Maybe it's the solution to churn out music every year, even if it's not good.
Well, well, he's not saying even if it's not good, because of course he's not going to suggest that. He wants it to be the same quality year over year, but
That's not how
in
it
turn,
works.
consistent engagement with fans is important, and Spotify is not the only place to do that. And what I'm seeing is what he's saying makes sense if streaming is the only revenue stream. And so to a degree, I see what he's saying, and contextualizing to just Spotify alone, I don't think he's necessarily wrong. Sure, it's a little harsh, but I think that's the subtext of that is how the game has changed and what the implications are. I'm not sure I'm not sure I'm okay with long term. So I have less an issue of what his direct statement is and more of what's sitting underneath it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's just, I've said this a couple times. He, in a way, he created the problem. He solved one problem, created another.
And now he's
And
making the artists try and solve it themselves. So
and exactly. And I feel like he made a promise, and I feel like that promise hasn't been really met. That, okay, people aren't going to steal your music anymore, but guess what? Now nobody's buying your music at all because people just
right,
aren't buying
right,
music.
right, right.
Unless
So
except for vinyl. Digital sales are dropping. They have been for years, I think. Vinyl sales are going up a little bit, but that's still like a niche product. CD sales are tanked. Tape sales are kind of up, but again, a niche product.
So here's where I don't want to talk in circles too much, but looking ahead to the future, here's what I'm seeing is Spotify has become the standard. So last decade we had iTunes, this decade we've had Spotify, and now we're getting to the same the same cycle is circling back, and now artists are upset again, and they're trying to figure out, well, we don't like this. What now? And I think it's just a matter of time if Spotify doesn't change to be more equitable before someone else figures out a way to disrupt the industry again and leave Spotify in the dust the same way that Spotify has left iTunes in the dust, the same way that iTunes has left Napster, and so on. Like the cycle
Yeah.
has turned over the last couple of decades like
Yeah.
clockwork. We're reaching that point again. Are we going to see another industry disruptor, or are we going to see Spotify say, hey, we don't want to make the same mistake the last guys did. Let's adjust at the end of the cycle and try to prevent this from happening again. So that's all
Yeah.
and that's what I'd like to close on as far as Spotify goes.
All right. Well, I do want to say, like, so there's this idea that artists should be consistently and constantly releasing music, and that does work for some artists. Like, I feel like that's a big thing with SoundCloud rappers to release singles instead of albums. But I've done this with a couple of artists. There was one person I worked with in Nashville, and I was like, I think you should do like an A sides, B sides club for 12 months, and then you can release an album from all of those singles. And it would be like his fans would be getting consistent music. But the truth of the matter is, releasing constant singles doesn't hype anybody as much as releasing an entire album does. Because if you're sending out that single email that's like every month, it's like, oh, here's another email from this person's publicist, or it doesn't hype up fans as much. And still, like, it really needs to be like album cycles to get a lot of to get a lot of reporters to cover your music. It can't always be just singles. Like, singles are a way to break through, but albums have to be hyped. And it just, like, I just really still think that he's missing out on the fact that it takes months. Like, the Soccer Mommy album that was just released, she finished that late last year and it came out like 2 months ago. So that's 6 months just from like when she's done recording to it getting released. So if you're releasing an album every year, that means essentially you have to like record every 6 months almost.
I think you're correct, assuming that the model hasn't changed, and I think Spotify is changing the model. So to a degree,
I mean, I'm still the one who's like in that little space, in the music industry space.
Right. I guess did say I wanted to end on that, but my caution is to you, looking at it from my perspective, is if the industry really is changing, you can't say this is the way it's always been, this is the way it works best, and expect that only goes so far. And resisting change versus adapting with the change. And I think that's the part of what Eck is saying that resonates from me, from someone who works in the tech world, where you've got to constantly adapt and overcome to stay relevant. So I don't know.
But
I don't know.
but it's like, it's
I
not like
appreciate how hard that is. I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not saying that hasn't worked really well for artists in the past.
it's
It's
not
just,
adapting to change, Andrew. It's like someone's coming in and stealing like the way you make money, and then they're telling you that you need to change their processes, like that you need to solve the problem that they created. It's like someone spills a glass of milk in front of you and says, like, it spills your glass of milk and says you need to clean that up. That's
I
what it
mean,
feels like.
I know, and I'm not discounting that. I don't disagree. I just, at a certain point, you can't stop the person from spilling the glass of milk, and that's where I say this. What I said before, there's a degree of resignation that comes behind that, and it depends on whether or not you're willing to just resign and move on.
I mean,
That's a really terrible place to be put in.
you can resign to it, or you can do what Joey is doing and like get some collective action going and change it, because I think that it can be changed. And I don't think we need to resign ourselves to this is just the way things are now. I think we can look at it and say, this used to be lucrative. We can make it lucrative again. And I'm not saying lucrative like be a millionaire. I'm saying lucrative like make a fair amount of money for the work
Be
that
able
you're
to pay your
doing,
rent and
and the
buy
response.
real groceries.
Yeah, if people are responding to your music and listening to your music, you should be able to like get money from doing that. Like, I'm not even saying like
Yeah,
this
yep.
like your only job necessarily, but it
I
should
know.
be fair. It should be fair compensation for the work. It shouldn't be other people making a ton of money off of your work and then telling you like how to like get around that, because then eventually record labels are going to be like, we want some of that Patreon money, even though they killed fan clubs 10 years ago. Like, it's just, it's how it is.
It's a very frustrating power dynamic. I fully grant you that, and I'm not arguing that. And I think we're starting to talk in circles again. So
I don't know. I just want that point to land, I guess.
yeah, that's totally fine.
That I think that we should, as musicians, have more collective bargaining weight than we do.
Well, I think I need to go take a shower and rinse off the devil's advocate sticky ooey gooey that I now feel, because that didn't feel great. But thank you for listening, and thank you for understanding. Join the conversation in the Facebook group. I think this is going to be one that we need to flesh out a little bit more in the comments there. So join. Let's have that conversation this week. And yeah.
Well, I'm Emily.
I'm Andrew.
Goodbye.
Bye.
1, 2.